Thank you very much for being here in this room with us. This is really a pleasure, and this is a very complicated indeed. So we're going to have a short time and a lot of work to do. So I'm very happy to call to the stage Jean Beyer. Please, if I'm not correctly pronouncing the names, okay. He's Global Head of AI Advocacy at GE Healthcare. Then we also have Thierry Marchal. He's President and Secretary General of Avicenna Alliance. We also call Lisbeth Guéris. She's Professor of Biomechanics and Computational at University of Liège and University of Leuven. And then we have Claudia Sklarczyk-Smolana. She is co-founder of IntelliSec. And finally, Elina Dragvik, she is Senior Lead at Citra Innovation Fund. So thank you very much for being here. I don't know if I have mics for everybody, so probably Jan and I will gonna share. We have 45 minutes, please take a seat. It's, I'm really honored to be doing this session with you guys because really I was reading your resumes and what you've been doing, and I think we're gonna share a lot of good insights here. So I will just start thanking, of course, the organizers of this event because it really gives us the opportunity to discuss in depth these challenges. And I'm going to suggest a way of having this conversation to really see how we can overcome these barriers together. Later, we'll have a session on the KPIs to measure if we're really overcoming these barriers or how to do that. So we will start saying which are the most significant barriers we can find and how we can, just with the technology, as we are really doing every day, can we overcome this. So this is a 45 minutes, yeah, I don't see a timer going, so we have plenty of time, apparently. So that's great. So in our first round, I asked the speakers to contribute to the discussion with some achievements, some contributions that they want to share from their own experience or also from their organizational experience. And I would start by Jan. For example, I started asking you something about AI adoption, but of course you can just take any contribution you want to share with us. That was in a 3-minute statement.
Sounds good. Thank you very much. Hey, everyone. Again, my name is Jan Beger. I'm with GE Healthcare, a global medtech, diagnostics, and digital innovator. We are 51,000 employees operating in 160 countries. Some of the team at our Kraków hub are here as well, so good to see you. And look, we are very active in the field of medical imaging for many years and developing AI solutions, deep learning solutions, machine learning solutions to improve our technologies for quite a long time. Actually, the first US FDA clearance for an AI-enabled medical device we got in 2014. And when you look into, right, and this is just US for now, when you look into a US FDA clearances for those kind of AI machine learning-enabled medical devices, as of today, we have more than 1,000 of them. Yeah? And there is often this impression that this field is led by the big tech, or by those fantastic innovative startups we have in the field. But when you look a little bit deeper into that data, you will realize that the good old medtech is leading that space. Yeah? And GE Healthcare is contributing with 85 AI and machine learning-enabled medical devices to those 1,000 which are today cleared by the US FDA. Yeah? So, and we are using those kind of technologies to do a variety of different things, just to share a few. And I hope I still have 2 minutes. Look, one thing is we are using AI and, for instance, deep learning to improve our medical imaging devices such as MRI, computed tomography, ultrasound, yeah, in a variety of different scenarios. One is how can we use AI to improve image quality? Yeah, for instance, in MRI, this has made major steps forward the last couple of years. A lot of right examples, not just from our company, from others as well, how we can get to better imaging, sharper images using deep learning in that space. Another example is, and some of you maybe had an MRI in the past. This is not a pleasant experience. It's not fun. Yeah? It's this kind of small bore you have to be in. It takes time. It's noisy. So not a great patient experience. What if we could use AI to reduce scan times? yeah, but keep the same image quality. This is what we do as well. Or for instance, in cardiac MRI, how can we avoid multiple breath holds to get to kind of good imaging by using AI that helps in that space? Yeah? So those are examples of what we are doing also in ultrasound. Maybe one last example, a very powerful and capable imaging modality, but also very limited, because when you want to get to high quality ultrasound, you need to have a certain level of experience and education, right? And this limits this fantastic device, which today is actually even handheld and wireless. Yeah, you can use in any kind of healthcare settings. I have one with me always when I travel, but again, it's limited on the user. So what we have done here is, for instance, is we have put AI into the machine that tells you during the scan how to move the probe on the patient's body to get to high quality medical images. Yeah, and those are just a couple of examples. Hopefully we can talk a little bit about the future as well. I'd like to share a couple of research projects with generative AI, AI agents. So, but I guess we come to this in a second.
Well, thank you. That was a very clear statement from the beginning. I have some questions. I mean, you were talking and I just started to think about, for example, AI to be used in clinical trials, the machine learning that can help a little bit to remove some data or improve the data for the clinical trials. That is a field that is totally increasing as well, that can connect to the other panel that is being treated on biopharma. So I think that we are not just discussing here about medtech and digital health, but also something that can connect to the other areas as well. And finally, everything that has to do with the AI Act, but also the AI factories and how it can help. But we can discuss that a little bit later, because I want to move to Thierry. Is it okay if I say Thierry is the right?
Sure, of course.
Thank you. So from your perspective, an example that I can suggest is how you are contributing to pharma from the engineering and medtech fields, but I don't know if you want to deep dive into something of that.
Yes, in fact, I've got a different hat too that I like to mention. First, that I'm Chief Technologist for Europe and Program Director for Healthcare at ANSYS, and we are very proudly working with GE Healthcare for this kind of things. I will not discuss anything that we are doing together, but well, Jan was talking a lot about MRI, and for example, one of the ways to expand the capability of the MRI machine is to say, okay, well, from the image, why just staying with the image? Why not adding a prediction of what could be done with the image to say, okay, if there are cerebral aneurysm or aortic aneurysm, is there a risk of rupture for that? That is kind of computational modeling and simulation, computer model here, which will enhance this kind of imaging, which is done with MRI, and therefore serve better the patient. So with ANSYS, we are creating this kind of computer model, but I'm here primarily as the President and Secretary General of the Avicenna Alliance. Over there, we are trying to bring different partner, industry, academic, with VPHI that Lisbeth is driving, a regulator as well, not yet GE Healthcare, but we hope to welcome you quite soon, in such a way that we can advocate for the adoption of in situ. That's where I'm coming to your question here. That means that we are creating some computer model. Today, it could be a computer model of yourself, because you are all different, and therefore it's very important to make sure that we are understanding what's going on for you. It's okay, but the human body is something very complex. Well, an airplane, a car is something very complex as well. But let me take one example related to pharma and medical device. I'm suffering from asthma. One of the elements is we have some inhaler in which you've got some powder, and this powder can go into my lungs here. Yeah, but what about COVID? When we were not able to inhale properly, would that make a difference? Will the powder be stuck in my throat and therefore not getting any treatment? Can we look at all people? So in this case, we can create, and let me use this kind of a typical word, a digital twin of my respiratory trees and the device, to connect them together, and therefore to be able to see, okay, what will be the treatment that we can have? Can we save the patient along this line? So those are the kind of progress and achievement to be done. Unfortunately, we need to make sure that we have regulatory approval. Can we trust this kind of a computer model? I've heard several people talking about trust. Can we trust them? Can we use them? either for in a hospital or for regulatory approval process. That's where we need to have some regulation, but people doesn't like the word regulation, so let's say guidelines. Can we use this kind of a computer model? And what is the guidance in order to validate this model in such a way that we can trust this kind of thing? That's what we are trying to achieve with the Avicenna Alliance. And sometimes this is a little bit scary, because the first time that together we had to talk at the US Congress or the European Parliament, we are engineers. We are not used to do that. And we found out that the people over there are very open people who are willing to learn, and people who are concerned about their own citizens. How can we make sure that we can take advantage of new technology, provided that we can trust them in order to help the health of their own citizens? So those are some of the achievements that we are realizing, bridging the gap between engineering, pharma, and medtech.
Well, I think that is, I mean, you nailed it when you say that we have to bridge these gaps and we have to use all this focus that we have with the technology. Deep tech is totally facing these challenges and providing deep tech. It's called to solve the main challenges that we have in healthcare and in society. So I think that it might be the turn of Lisbeth to talk about how deep tech is really changing this. But let me just go, Thierry, back to you for 1 second. And I think you also mentioned something which is really crucial, which is we can have the technology, we can have the developments. Of course, you mentioned something that is totally into personalized medicine, personalized for the need of the patient and the treatments. But also, and we were talking about that yesterday in another panel, the one is the technology readiness level and the other is the adoption readiness level. So to be really ready to be adopted, you have to face some of those challenges that you were mentioning in these technologies. And we can go back later to that, but we can just now go to Lisbeth and ask from your side which contributions you can have to this area.
Yes, thank you, Monse. My name is Lies Geris. I'm from the University of Liège and KU Leuven in Belgium, where I'm a PI in biomechanics and computational tissue engineering, but I'm sitting here because I'm the current executive director of the VPH Institute, which is the International Society for in silico medicine. And what we as a society uniting non-profit organizations, so hospitals and academics and health technology assessment agencies, what we've been trying to do is bridge this gap between what the technology is and where it can be applied in society. So talking to all the different stakeholders, to the regulators, together with the Avicenna Alliance and the colleagues in industry, but also to patient organizations, to policymakers, in order to really map out this entire, or map all the barriers and try to lower them. And we have really cool applications, as have already been mentioned, and I can maybe add a few examples of how technology can enhance workers' life, for instance, by looking at wellness, by measuring when people are, with all the wearables that we have, running trials on whether workers are getting tired, optimizing their own mental health, and therefore the optimization, the organization's output, but also healthcare workers in the intensive care unit to help them assess better the patients and doing the glycemic control. We have augmentation of clinical trials for the safety of patients. So all kinds of different applications using AI and other digital technologies, so the entire spectrum, to improve people's lives. But what is really important there is this ecosystem engagement. And what VPHI has been doing the past couple of years, we've had the privilege of leading the EDIT Coordination and Support Action, which is a European project that set out to bring together the ecosystem and write the roadmap together for the virtual human twin, for the implementation of what DG Connect has called their next flagship initiative, to make sure that we have a common vision, that we know what is the need of the society, what is the technology, the current status in deep tech, and how we can merge all these things in a framework that is also guided by the European legislative situation, by the regulators, and by the ethical, social issues as well. And so what we hope to achieve with this is that there is this common shared vision, and that in a fragmented funding landscape, everybody will find their place, and that we will have some kind of interoperability by design, because we will never have just top-down one initiative that will solve everything. There are many different companies, many different players, many different organizations that can make a development. But if we share a common vision, if we know where we're heading, then everybody can plug in their little thing. And that is what we have been trying to achieve, to make sure that we can all work on the same goal.
Well, thank you. You talk about common vision and also this interoperability of, so the possibility of having a common language and understanding when we define or we target some of those challenges. Are we tackling them from the same understanding of what we are managing? And that, I think, that can open the floor to Claudia, because you have this link between pharmacogenomics, which is something that I think is the next big thing as well, and how from the deep tech or from the technology we're facing these challenges.
Yeah, thank you very much. Hello, everyone. My name is Claudia. I'm one of the co-founders and chief executive officer of a company called IntelliSeq. IntelliSeq is a bioinformatics company, so we're a software provider. We're building our own algorithms for human genetic data analysis and interpretation in different contexts of so-called genome-based medicine. So pharmacogenomics is one of the areas that we're building algorithms for, and we're helping physicians, molecular pathologists, or medical directors with data interpretation. As you probably know now, the cost of sequencing is dropping drastically, fortunately. So the problem right now is not genome sequencing itself, but what to do with all the data. Yeah, firstly, you need to compare patient data to some sort of a reference, which is called reference genome, to find some mutations, areas in your genome that stood out of a norm, of a standard. And then the toughest part is how to interpret these mutations. Yeah, what do they mean? And this is where we are helping. Of course, it's not that we're doing everything. We're building tools that actually takes the knowledge gathered through scientific discoveries, and it's already collected in external databases like FDA recommendations, CPIC in the context of pharmacogenomics, which is a clinical pharmacogenomics implementation consortium. So databases like this that are a golden standard in genome medicine, and we're taking the data from these databases and bringing them, pulling them in the reporting for clinicians, for geneticians, for pathologists in laboratories. So we're replacing the manual work, we're speeding up the whole process of clinical decision-making based on genetic data. And according to what you said about pharmacogenomics, probably you all taken some drugs in your life, and what is pharmacogenomics all about is about adjusting the dosage of the drug based on your genotype. Some of you might be a so-called fast metabolizer, others might be so-called slow metabolizer, which means that the drug that you're taking will stay for a shorter or longer period of time in your body, and it may or may not cause a specific number of side effects. The holy grail is to limit down, decrease the number of side effects. So knowing your genotype, the fact that you're a fast metabolizer of drug A or drug B, can help with, should help, we will talk about barriers, should help clinicians with making a decision. Okay, so this person should, from the very beginning, start with a higher dose of a drug because they're a fast metabolizer. They will get rid of the drug, their body will get rid of the drug much more quicker. But to be able to make this decision, there are other different aspects of what is necessary to make this decision. The first input necessary is genetic data. Yeah, the doctor should have so-called genetic passport that every patient should be having. We're not there yet. Not yet.
Thank you, Claudia. I think that was very forward-looking, and that opens the floor to, in my network, the person of reference for me when we talk about health data is Elena. But now that I have a larger network, I'm very happy to include other visions, which is we are going to do this today. But Elena, we were talking about data. Answering also, Claudia, your take on the subject. You are working on a huge cross-border collaboration initiative, TEDAS 2, previously TEDAS 1, let's say that way. What's your take there?
Thank you, Montse. Very important. And I'm also learning new things. I want to know if I'm a fast or slow metabolizer. Very interesting panel discussion. But hello, everyone. My name is Elina Trakvik, and working as senior lead at Sitra, the Finnish Innovation Fund. And Sitra is the coordinator of TEHDAS 2 joint action. So TEHDAS 2 is really working on preparing the ground for the implementation of the European health data space. So what we are doing in practice, we are providing concrete guidelines and technical specifications related to the implementation of the European health data space. And of course, this is related to the guidelines that will be necessary for the health data access bodies, but also guidelines for data users and also guidelines for data holders, because there will be a lot of new responsibilities with the European health data space. And what we heard about the panel discussions and keynotes from this morning, one of the big challenges is, of course, this streamlining the interpretation of the different regulations. So that is also one of our key challenges in TEHDAS 2, but it is also one of our key aims. So that is our goal towards the harmonized implementation of the European health data space. And of course, you are part of the solution. So even though we are a big project, as Montse was just mentioning, we are almost 70 organizations involved. We are 29 European countries, so all the member states, plus also Iceland and Norway. Everybody wants to be involved because this is the vision for the future. This is the future. We have to have the health data available. If it's not used, there's no value. But as I said, you are also part of the solution because one of the key components in TEHDAS 2 are these public consultations. So whatever guidelines and technical specifications we are producing, we want to hear from you. You are also the experts, you will be the users, and you will be the ones who will benefit from this work. So we have, for example, the next public consultation opening up at the end of September. There will be 10 different documents, well, 11 actually, to comment on, and it will be a 2-month period open at tehdas.eu website. So please make sure that you will also contribute because you are also part of the solution.
Well, that was very engaging, Alina. Thank you, and we'll definitely go on board for everything that we can do about that. So for the next 20 minutes, we will try to have these speakers connected in a small dialogue among some of them, because we identified some common fields of interest or challenges. And I would like to start with Thierry and Lisbeth, because Thierry, we were discussing if a future with personal digital avatars requires that all stakeholders work together and face some regulatory barriers and some regulatory issues. But at the same time, Lisbeth, from this research to clinical in silico models that you also were mentioning in previous conversations. So this also involves the use of digital twins. So my question to you is, probably you can engage in a short dialogue on which could be, from your perspective, the regulatory barriers, the financial barriers that can prevent this to happen in the path that we want this to happen.
Sure, for that. And Lisbeth, if I can start along this line, clearly, well, if we've got more money to fund this kind of research, at the academic and in the industry, that would be fantastic. If we've got all the regulator opening the door and saying, okay, you can use in silico model whenever you want, provided that we can approve, that would be great, because we can reduce dramatically this kind of regulatory approval process. And by the way, find some funding. Because today, to get a new medical device product approved can cost up to $500 million. Getting a new drug approved could be $2 to $3 billion. So if we can reduce that quite a lot, we can create quite a lot of more money for that. But I think that before that, the barrier that I can see is maybe a lack of trust, maybe due to some lack of communication. Whenever we've got the chance to talk to policymakers, to talk to patient organizations and so on, they are amazed by what could be done here. And therefore, they're willing to work a little bit more, provided that they're open. But quite often after some preliminary discussion, I'm thinking about MEP, member of the European Parliament, well, we have a talk, and then nothing is happening. with one exception that I've heard this morning. I was truly delighted to see that Adam remembered that one of his team was visiting you, and he was quite impressed for that. So my feeling is that a first barrier to overcome is to make sure that we are not working in silos anymore, but we trust each other, we are listening to each other, and we are moving forward a little bit like what has been done as part of the Avicena Alliance, where we were bringing the academic people, like a VPHI, together with industry people to bridge the gap between academic and industry and to make sure that we are working together. Would you agree on that or disagree on this perspective?
Well, I agree that trust and communication are very important, but I also think that people are much more willing to engage than sometimes is said. There is sometimes lack of communication and lack of trust is being cited, and yes, that happens at several. There are examples of that, but I think once we start talking to people and bring them together and do co-creation rather than a technology push, then we discover actually a super openness of everyone. I think one group of people that has not been mentioned a lot yet, and that is not present here, are the clinicians. Because what we do, one of the barriers there is the adoption. And not so much in that they would be resisting the adoption, but that it will actually create more work at the short term for them. So we need to find ways how we can accommodate them, giving us the right data, because now it's very scattered. And even with AI, I mean, we need to still have good data. But we also need to facilitate for them the inclusion in the clinical workflow of all these new tools so that it will not take more time and that we will not create more work for them. And maybe we need additional roles in there. So there is this, maybe we need not a radiology department, but a department for data integration and digital twins inside the hospital. So we can diversify and spread the work over different profiles.
Well,
yeah, but
yeah,
if I can
very shortly,
that,
because we need to move.
You are making the life even more complex because you are bringing more people over there. And maybe one of the, and you're right to do that, but one of the things that we need to do is to make sure that we coordinate all this action. And maybe that should be the role of the European authority to say, if Europe is willing to lead that, and we've got a unique opportunity to do it now, we need to coordinate and to put a real timeline, because otherwise we'll be meeting again with all these nice people in a few months or in a couple of years, and we'll still have the same discussion.
Okay, that was great. That was going to be definitely tomorrow in the reporting. But I just will move to Jan. I haven't paired you with anybody, so it will be with me at that level. I am going to ask you, so AI, oh, it's okay, thank you. So AI is driving the change, and this will require literacy among professionals. And we were talking about the clinical staff or the clinical professionals. So which is your idea? I mean, what role can technology play there? The digital health tools that we are putting into place, how can this contribute to this literacy? How this literacy needs to be put in place for this to happen?
That's a great question, thank you. And I just want to connect what you just asked with what you just said. Look, AI is coming to all of us. Yeah, so I hope for the most of you, it's already a tool that is very helpful in your day-to-day life, both professionally and personally. But it's going to come to all aspects of healthcare. Yeah? It will pervasively and persistently change all aspects of care in the long run. Yeah? And we have to get ready for this. One thing, what I usually say, for instance, to radiologists is start thinking about rewriting your job description. Yeah? And think about all aspects of your role and responsibilities and how this will be changed by using AI going forward. And I think all roles in healthcare have to do this. And yes, there will be new roles as well. I fully agree to what you said. To your point, right? This is a transformative change we are going to go through the next couple of years, and there are a variety of different things we have to do to drive this change management responsibly. One of those things in here, you asked around this, is, right, and also the European AI Act is talking about this term AI literacy. Yeah, so institutions, companies that use AI, and this is basically everyone, they have to make sure their employees are equipped with the skills, with the knowledge and the mindset to drive this change. Yeah, and this is what I mean by AI literacy. We have to equip healthcare professionals with the know-how, with the mindset as well. That's still an important issue today to really lead this change towards an AI-enabled healthcare.
So I'm representing a biotech cluster in Catalonia, which is a region north of Spain, quite a successful cluster. And I try to put in place programs and support to our stakeholders, you know, the 1,500 companies and stakeholders in the region. Should I know about that? Must our staff be trained on AI to better support the stakeholders? Because you talk about clinicians, you talk about the patients, we talk about professionals, but what about everybody that is involved in innovation in healthcare?
Everyone needs a certain level of AI literacy, right? And when we say AI,
and how should we start?
When we talk about this term, it's not about turning a clinician or an innovation manager into a mathematician or coder, not at all, yeah? But it's all about how to assess AI technologies and how to communicate and collaborate with AI responsibly. This is what we need to, where we need to get to, right? And this is the main focus of education for all kind of stakeholders, yeah? And to be honest, I think, again, this is such a transformational change. When we talk about AI education, we should already start with our kids and need to bring this topic into schools in the 5th or 6th grade, for instance.
And then that brings us to the use of this data that we have from the patients that are also more knowledgeable about AI and about the use of their patient data for innovation. But then we go to Claudia and to Elena, because both of you are focusing on the use of this data for different pathways, different reasons. So how can we ensure that this data is of quality, can be interoperable, semantically understandable to each other, that we are not in silos, as Thierry mentioned? What do you suggest in this pathway to overcome the barriers?
Well, okay, I can start. Well, first of all, we have other projects that are really working on the quality aspects. So how to make the data quality, how to assess that, how to make it transparent. There is the article in the European Health Data Space, Article 78, that is about the data quality and utility label. There's also the aspect of the assessing the maturity of the data holders, which will also help in increasing the transparency of the different aspects of data quality.
Sorry, Elena, and who's going to assess that?
That is the data holders themselves.
The data holders.
So that is self-assessment tool. That is
self-assessment.
Yes, that was under progress. It is being developed by the Quantum project as we speak. A very good tool will be available. Of course, it's a prototype, so we hope that we will see also other tools then available in the market in the future. But I think one of the key aspects is you were mentioning interoperability. Of course, in Tehdas 2, we are producing the guidelines so that the data can be discovered, so it can be found. So this is the metadata standards. In Tehdas 2, there is a specific guideline that will be coming up on how to use this metadata standard exactly. So it's a practical guideline, Health DCAT AP guideline, or the standard. But what I'm not worried about the technical aspects. The interoperability, that is already there. It's technically already possible. But what I'm more worried about in terms of the interoperability is the human factor and also the capacity required, because the EHDS, that will put some, well, I wouldn't want to say burden, but I will say it now anyway, some burden on the data holders to do this work. And of course, this requires capacity building, it requires awareness raising, it requires changing the whole data culture. And of course, we also want to see more integration between the primary use side and the secondary use side, because now these are more different communities. But I think if we really want to get there in the end, we should start from the beginning, try to integrate these communities, and really see, because in the long run, this will benefit everyone. It will be data quality by design if we integrate these communities more.
But then you talked about secondary use, and I think that Claudia is focusing on the primary use in the sense that the data, the genomic data, is going to provide better treatments. So is interoperability a problem there? Is data sharing frameworks across the EU enough in place for that?
Yes, it is a problem. So first of all, you have to have an access to the data. That's the first problem. So in our case, genetic data, as you all know, this is a very sensitive kind of data, but also sensible. And let me give you some examples from practical point of view, since we're already on a commercialization stage, so we're cooperating with hospitals or independent laboratories. And they're seeking for a help as it comes to data interpretation. So they already, the good thing is that they already have a sequencer, so they can offer sequencing, so transferring biological material, so your saliva or blood, into a digital one, so a code, DNA code, yeah? So they can sequence you. Of course, the question is who will pay for it. Then there is a question what to do with the data. And if they don't have their own in-house bioinformaticians, their own in-house pipelines, they ask companies like us for a help. And then to validate that our software is the right software to be used on the data provided from this hospital, because we have different ancestry in the US. This is the market that we operate, but it's the same in Europe. You should use different reference for different populations. You have to have access to the data that the lab owns. And then one of the issues is that the laboratory or the hospital cannot send out the data because of the regulatories. So despite the fact that we're operating on a cloud and it's HIPAA compliant, GDPR compliant, it's not enough, because there is a mental and regulatory related barrier in sending out the data to companies like us to actually validate and then improve the data analysis and interpretation. So data access is one thing that is a barrier to improve in the end the level of either treatment optimization on or diagnostics. And as it comes to interoperability, again, from physician's perspective or even from patient's perspective, physician doesn't have time to dive deep into all the long reporting around pharmacogenomics or, I don't know, diagnostics of rare diseases or diagnostics of in the somatic cancer space. It should be short and practical. And the best thing would be to have it already, the report should be integrated with the electronic healthcare health record system, which might be an Epic in the US. So despite the fact that we're offering our reporting, the question is, okay, but how this reporting will be integrated into either my laboratory information management system or my other electronic health record systems? Because I don't have time as a physician to jump from one portal to another. And in your portal, I don't have medical data. And me as a physician, I need to interpret the genetic data and the report that you're offering in the context of all the non-genetic data. So the patient age, gender, ancestry, so on and so forth. So us as a technological startup, we do a lot of work in being interoperable, in the meaning to be able to integrate our reporting capabilities and our algorithms into bigger mother systems within integrated healthcare systems. And it differs. In Europe, every country has its own regulatory frames and different expectations.
That is the fragmentation that we always talk about, which is great because, I mean, it's not that we just talk about the same things, but we just try to gather some new insights every time we have some new composition of a panel, which I think that is great, and I hope you feel that way too. So good news and bad news. In a little bit less than 5 minutes, these mics are going to be turned off, not by us. And then the good news about it is that you have a couple of 3 minutes to ask some questions to the panel. Who wants to start? We have mics to be available. Some questions over there. Okay. We also have the possibility to share with you a couple of QR codes, one QR code for one Slido short survey that we prepared for the audience. You don't need to answer everything now because we might not be with time enough. Is it okay? Is it working? QR? Okay. Can we share? We have a QR code asking you first if you want to share your name and your organization, but it is not going to be shown here. We will just skip to the, So you will see the first question. You can or not provide your details. It's good for us because we know a little bit, the demographics of who is answering what. And then we can just check the answers as they evolve. So we will skip the first one for sure, and we go with this one. Yeah, that one is a good one. So we want, if you can share a good example of a barrier overcome in your field of action, so something that has worked. And it was shared also by Claudia, and it was shared an example by Thierry. So if you have some good example that you want to share for us to be talked about tomorrow, that is the first one. And there's one participant typing, so it's great. We have someone that is actively answering. And the second question that we have here, and if it's okay, we can just move to the next one, is what do you expect from the European Commission to support innovation as a reaction? Because we also want these barriers to be overcome with support from the Commission with certain instruments and tools to this uncertain situation that we are facing. It's not just of those barriers, financial, regulatory, fragmentation barriers, but we are also embedded in a situation that is changing, and that it also can oblige us to be reacting with new instruments and new tools. And adoption, that I think that speed adoption funding. That's definitely three of the things that we identified, but adoption, actually, it brings us to the idea that we can have innovation, but we really need to liaise with the authorities and the market that needs to bring this innovation to the patients and to the society as an end user. We have 1 minute. Is someone in the panel willing to share something that has not been said? Jan, I don't know.
So look, as we talk about barriers, I would say, right, when we talked about interoperability, being a problem or not, actually I feel it is. Yeah, when you, for instance, look into the domain of radiology, which is digital since 15 plus years, right, which have a great standard called DICOM, but still we cannot talk about like full-blown interoperability. There are still many issues that systems do not talk to each other. So that stays a barrier and is something we really have to tackle to make, for instance, technologies such as AI work at broad scale. But we also have issues with like reimbursement of AI. That's a big topic. We see a lot of discussions around, right? We talked about adoption in the sense of a user experience. Yeah? When I talk to radiologists, they say, hey, look, your AI tool sounds great, but if I have to do one single click more, I'm not going to use it. Yeah? So those technologies need to be deeply embedded into existing workflows, into existing digital technologies. That's another reason. So there is plenty of different, let's say, barriers we have to address, not step by step, but all together to some extent, to really make this future work. Because, right, in the field of AI, there's massive potential. Technologies are there to transformationally change healthcare. We just need to get it to work and get it, let's say, to the street. That's important.
And one word from it for the Commission. One word.
Ecosystem. We need to do it together.
In efficacy.
Claudia, one word.
Determination.
And Elena?
Speed and use cases.
Thank you very much. We reached the 000, and thank you. That was great. Thank you for your capacity to synthesize, and thank you, the audience.